Hello. Hang on, let me just check levels. X has updated the thing with the compatibility with Restream, and it's saying that it's not there. Saying there's an error, but it's working. So I don't know what the fuck's going on. Obviously some sort of bug because, you know, Twitter broadcast not running. Well, it looks like their integration's a bit buggy. Everyone is shocked. I have COVID. That's why I look like shit and sound like shit and feel like shit. But I thought, hey, let's do it. Let's see how long I can go for. It won't be long. Works for YouTube. Yeah, YouTube works fine. Everything else works fine. It's just, yeah, X updated it so that the chat works. Hang on, just let me test. I apologize. Hang on. Hang on, one sec. Let me see if it comes up. Does it come up on the chat? Doesn't. Yeah, whatever. Okay, well, it doesn't work. Okay, well, that's fucking great, isn't it? Good effort. Quality effort from Twitter, from the X team, as usual. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, well, they announced that it was working and compatible, but, you know, obviously it's, you know, when there's a new feature, you're never sure what's going to happen, right? So, you know, it doesn't work. That's okay. They said it would. It didn't. That's okay. Let's see how long I can last. I'm on my last hour of paracetamol before I need more paracetamol. So I'm on that sort of, you know, the end part, but we'll see how we go. I can't take anything other than paracetamol, so it's fun. But, you know, we'll see how we go. Anyway, hi, Judith. How you going? But I did want to say this before Christmas because I find it funny because I actually been meaning, I meant to share this last year and I never did, right? And then, hang on, let me just close this tab. Hang on. Actually, I might keep it open. Just give me a second because it's not coming through and I've said that it would and it hasn't. So now I'm going to keep the tab open so if people are chatting, I can see they're chatting. For fuck's sake. Okay. Hang on, let me just turn the sound off. The sound is off. And we're all good. Okay. No, which is that there was a couple of, like, we actually don't do Christmas, right? I mean, this year we've got no money, so we can't do Christmas anyway. But generally we don't do Christmas anyway. And I think people, it was quite funny actually, because it is something I can't take Sudafed. So you already said that, but no, I can't take it. It's not available, and I can't take it for both reasons. So anyway, but it was quite funny because a couple of years ago we were having people over, and don't make me hide you. So we were having some people over, and it was quite funny to me because I've had this happen a few times, and I think it's worth remembering that Christmas isn't like is something that people do voluntarily, right? It's funny because it is weird because I have these interactions with people, and it never seems to occur to people that, like, you can just decide to not do Christmas. And I just find that very interesting, like, because Christmas was always shitty for me as a kid, right? It was just shitty for me as a kid. I have no good memories around Christmas. I also, okay, I'm just going to hide the chat until, like, because I can't, it keeps like popping up in my peripheral vision. So I'll just it's nothing about you, Matt. I'll see it later, but like, it's just because it's right in my peripheral vision. So I'm just like, okay, chat away. Yeah, anyway, just because it's just right there going pop, pop, pop. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm just not well enough to, like, yeah, anyway. So, like I was saying, so basically, like, Christmas has always been shitty for me because I'm a freelancer, right? I wrote about this on LinkedIn if you see me on LinkedIn, but it's but this time of year there's always no money because people fuck off on holidays. They don't book work. They, for whatever reason, you just end up with no money. Like when I was freelancing, people would there was just never any money at Christmas, and January tends to drought, like in terms of work. So you just, there's never any money. So people would just go off on holidays, enjoy their nice overseas holidays, and I'd get to watch that on Facebook, knowing that they had thousands of dollars of invoices due, and it was really cool. I love it. So, there was that part. So when my kids were little, Christmas was quite stressful, right? Because, making sure that the kids had Christmas was always like top priority for me. But there's always that, like, I'm not religious. I don't care. It's like, why would I create more work for myself? And it was interesting because we were having some friends over, and one particular friend was complaining about all the things she's got to do, like before Christmas, and she's got all this stuff, and she's got to go do this and do that and do that. And we were like, and she's like, oh, and I was like, well, you can just not do it like us. I was like, I'm not doing it. I refuse. I'm not religious. Why am I doing that? I'm busy. I don't want to do it. Don't have any money. Can't afford it. Why can't we just can't we just have a normal day off? Right? Why does it have to be like this big stressful exercise? And it's just funny because saying it out loud, you could have, like, her face was just like, it had never even occurred to her that Christmas was optional to her and that she doesn't have to do it. And I've also had these interactions over the year as well where, where I've seen people complaining about their kids and their ungrateful husband, and they got to do all this stuff. It's like, well, no, you don't have to. Are you religious? No. Well, then you don't have to do it. Don't martyr yourself. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like when people are complaining about shit that they choose to do, it's very annoying, right? I complain about shit that I choose to do all the time. But at the end of the day, I'm self-aware enough to know that, I can choose to not do stuff, and that if I make X choice, like, for example, choosing to not run the agency, don't have money now. Okay, that's a thing. Open your big mouth, fuck around, find out. Like, that's a choice I've made. I'll moan about not having money. I'll moan about various things. But at the same time, it's a decision that I've made, and it is consequences for that decision, right? And I do find it funny with Christmas where people martyr themselves, and they feel this, especially women, where they feel this sense of obligation. It's like, well, my kids will get upset if I don't do it. Well, okay then. Just get your kids a present then and don't do the rest. Like, I don't understand. What do you get out of it? I don't get anything out of it. Then why do it? If you don't get anything out of it, then don't do it. You don't have to. And if people are making these demands of you, like you are expected to cook all of this stuff and, do all of this fucking labor, you don't have to. Okay? Or be honest with yourself and say, I'm doing this because it's the path of least resistance. I'm doing this because I want to do it because I care about what people think. I'm doing it because I like martyring myself. That's one thing. I like, all of these things. And it's like, don't complain about shit when you've decided to do it. So anyway, it was quite funny. So I'm giving you permission right now to say that I'm not doing it, especially when your kids are older. Like when kids are little, it's a bit different because, being left out and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, have a conversation with your kid about Christmas. Like, I'm not religious. I'm anti-consumer. I don't like, consumerism. I just like this idea that I'm forced to buy shit for people and I don't like it. I will do stuff for people when I've got money, but when I don't have money, I can't. So why am I I can't do it. So the fact that people expect that of me when I don't have the money, then they can go fuck themselves. Right? With my kids, they don't miss out on presents. They just get stuff throughout the year. When I do have money and I do have the ability, Christmas is the worst time of year to be able to afford anything. We're hanging on by a thread. Like, that's just how it works. So why do it? Don't do it. You don't have to. Okay? And that's really funny about these societal obligations that, it's like, just admit you like the decorations. Okay. Stop complaining then. You like it. Then there's no problem. Just stop fucking moaning and acting like you have to do these things because you don't. It just means that you would rather cave to social pressure than set boundaries. It's like, just don't do it. My kids don't mind. They understand. They don't give a fuck. Right? They can just get some money at the Christmas sales when, after later on when money starts coming in and I'm not fucking, whatever. We make it right and we give them, they can go buy whatever they want, right? It's like we've got that, have a conversation with your children about fucking cash flow, right? It's not really that difficult. It is very funny how this, people are just moaning and stressing about Christmas all the time and martyring. I just don't like people who martyr themselves. I don't like people who act like that they're victims for choices. Like, again, I'll moan about stuff. I get it. I'm just saying I get frustrated by it mostly because I get frustrated when I do it because it's like a lack of perspective and And but at the end of the day, fundamentally, I know that I've made a decision and I've got to live with it, right? And when things aren't going so well, obviously that can be hard when you've made certain decisions, right? Oh, Kate, hi. My parents have never celebrated Christmas and neither have I. I've never felt like I missed out. I'll put the chats back on now. I just wanted to get that out and Matt was fucking spurging out again. So hang on. So parents have never celebrated Christmas and neither have I. I've never felt like I missed out. They gave us presents when they found something cool for us on the holidays. I still opt out as much as possible. Some people get salty about it, but I don't care. Yeah, and I find it really interesting actually when you talk about people tend to get really it's very weird. People get very defensive about this because and this is the same thing like with the divorce, right? Like when I had this with other mothers who when I went through my divorce and we had because I was the full-time income parent and my ex was at home because he'd been injured, right? So when we divorced, he had the kids during the week and I had them on the weekends. And people really didn't take too kindly to that. And it was mostly other women because a lot of them were like, I could tell fundamentally it was because they weren't brave enough to decide to do that. Right? Because they just went with, oh, well, the mother gets the kids. And I went, well, why? I'm the one that works. He's at home. Why should I be a full, what? That's sexist. Why am I the default carer for the kids? Sorry, but no. And it's the same thing with Christmas. But why am I doing it? But people, when you're making a choice about something, I apologize for my voice. But when you're making a choice to do something, just be honest with yourself about why you're doing it, which is that, you're doing it for the social pressure and but there's nothing making you. You're not being made to do stuff. You're not being forced, outside of a, some sort of DV situation or something like that. It's not the default that, like, you know, when you divorce, that the kids go with the mother. You just decided that, and you weren't willing to take the social pressure that goes with it. Like, don't murder yourself. That shit, right? And it's the same thing with Christmas. People are very threatened when people make decisions they wish they were brave enough to make, in my opinion, right? I've noticed, again, we know this, like, you know, like psych theory backs me up there, but it's, you know, yeah, but it's, but, you know, I just don't, like, who cares? Do Christmas, don't do Christmas. It's not, it's almost like what other people do isn't a fucking commentary on you and your life and your decisions, okay? But also, maybe look at your decisions as decisions, not their choices. At the end of the day, we do, for the most part, outside of being restricted by various structural things like capitalism and, you know, like not all these other things, right? We do have some degree of agency, right? And that's the thing that annoys me about, I think, a lot of sort of, especially lefty stuff, where it's like, you know, you got to kind of walk a line. Excuse me. You got to walk that line between, you know, doing class analysis and, you know, analyzing structures and like martyring yourself and stripping people of their agency. Like, people still have agency at the end of the day. It might be a bit harder. Yes. Okay. Is it harder for me because I swear and because I do stuff and I made certain decisions? Yes. Am I an idiot? Yes. Do I wish I hadn't? Yes. You know, am I frustrated? Fuck yeah. However, you know, I'm not sitting there playing victim as such. I'm saying I understand why it's happening, right? It's the same thing with Christmas. It's like, you know, like, don't martyr yourself over this stuff. Do it. Don't do it. Stop moaning. You know, I like moaning more than anyone on the planet. Okay. I love moaning. It's my favorite pastime. But underneath, I hold myself accountable for my choices, right? Probably too much. I mean, if anything, I'm like more like self-critical, right, than you'd think. But anyway, this is me giving you permission to just decide to not do that shit. You don't have to go and stress yourself out and go see family that you don't like. You don't have to hang out with your family. You aren't obligated to hang out with the people. You didn't choose to be born. Okay, you aren't obligated to, like, you know, spend thousands of dollars on food and presents and stuff for people that you don't like. You're not obligated. Is there a flip side to that? That you might, like, they might get a bit shitty? Yeah, well, so fuck them. It's like, well, okay. Like, I don't understand. Like, I've never understood that whole martyr thing. Like, and again, that's that whole, you know, a lot of, like, women particularly love martyring. There's a difference between feminism and martyring yourself, as far as, you know, like, they're different things, right? And, like, there are people who just love martyring themselves and pretending that they kind of have it harder than everyone and all that sort of stuff, right? And it's like, Christmas is the perfect time of year for people to do that and pretend that their life is harder than it is, or make their life more difficult than it is, creating themselves problems. I've got enough problems without creating more stress. I've got enough stress, right, without creating myself. And I think maybe that's what it is that I just can't deal with any more stress, that, like, I just don't do it anymore. I just see it as a situation of my own making. Why would I do Christmas? Right? It's like, my kids are adults, okay, aside from one, and he's like, he just wants, like, guitar shit and stuff later when there's specials on. He's, like, pretty easygoing, right? It's like, you don't have to get gifts for people just because, you know, I don't get it, you know, and it's like, you know, it's a bit more respectful of people's back. Yeah, I think that's also just because there's, again, you got Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, you all, you know, but, you know, you're still walking around with Christmas decorations everywhere. It's still very clear that, you know, you're expected to do Christmas. I know a lot of Jews in America who do Christmas because of the fucking pressure from their kids. It's like they do both Hanukkah and Christmas, which is fine because it's fun for kids, right? But at the same time, it's like, I just find it weird anyway. Yeah, so anyway, it's just like, I just found it very funny because there is this moment that was a funny interaction where I said, we're just not doing Christmas. The kids are adults. We're not doing it. I don't want to do it. And it blew their fucking mind. It's like, you can do that? That's an option? It's like, yeah. And it was very funny. Anyway, I'm fucked. Okay, I'm not feeling so great. But yeah, I did want to talk about a bit about the stuff with what you call it? What's his face? What's his fuck? That guy. I did. It was funny, actually. I did break their brain. And it was funny because I didn't expect to. It was one of those things where it's like it had never actually occurred to anyone. And it was the same thing when I got divorced and like I didn't have the kids. And everyone just looked at me like I had two heads. And it was just a purely pragmatic decision. And I think having gone through that, I think I realized that that how much shit that women take on that is of our own, that we decide to do. Social pressure. That we can actually choose the alternative. We just don't want to choose the hard alternative. We choose the easy one, right? And that's what I find really interesting is like, I find that really fascinating. Anyway, let me just get this. I'm not going to last very long. I'm going to fade really fast. I wasn't sure how long I'd last, but I did want to talk about this a little bit, mostly because everyone's being stupid, right? So let's go with this. Are you going to open, fuckhead? Yeah, okay. So you've seen this doing the rounds, and I think you'll see some misrepresentations about like what's actually happening here, because these fucking idiots, it's like they're making it about like censorship and stuff, right? And when you, again, like always, when you dig a bit deeper, it's all perfectly reasonable stuff. They're not trying to censor misinformation. It has a specific fucking meaning. And it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, even like otherwise fairly decent journalists like Glenn Greenwald, who, like I do tend to agree with him on the censorship stuff. But it is so like US centric for a start. Like this idea that somehow the First Amendment is like the goal. It's like, well, not necessarily. Like that's for you. Like, it doesn't seem to be working all that well for you because you end up with televangelism and, various other things that hurt people. I don't think that's necessarily ideal, okay? But, there's different ways to look at these things, right? And I'm anti-censorship, okay? But, like, there's just this sort of whitewashing over what is and isn't, like, illegal content and all those sorts of stuff, and they just ignore the details, right? So anyway... So the Commission opens formal proceedings against X under the Digital Services Act. Now, basically, under the Digital Services Act came into effect, all that sort of stuff. They've been asking for information in the form of transparency reports from all of the very large online platforms. I've talked about those before, right? But the X so far is the only one where they have decided to proceed to an investigation, okay? Now, all the carry on sounds like they're trying to arrest Elon Musk for doing free speech. Bollocks! Anyway, so the European Commission has opened formal proceedings to assess whether X may have breached the Digital Services Act in areas linked to risk management, content moderation, dark patterns, advertising transparency, and data access for researchers. Okay, so none of this, if you've been following what's going on with X, has been any surprise. So on the basis of preliminary investigation conducted so far, including on the basis of an analysis of the risk assessment report submitted by X in September, X's transparency report published on 3rd of November, and X's replies to a formal request for information. So basically they've decided to open a formal infringement proceedings against X under the Digital Services Act. Now, why they're doing that? I actually read the transparency report myself and those things, and even I'm just like, well, okay, it looks like I can't see why it's a problem. So anyway, so the proceedings will, as long as X is operating in good faith, there's no problem here. So the proceedings will focus on the following areas: the compliance with the DSA obligations related to countering the dissemination of illegal content in the EU. Now, this is the thing that the right-wingers in the US are like losing their nut over. But the thing is, what you need to know is that illegal content doesn't actually have a legally defined meaning. And what they've done is defer to the countries and the individual countries to determine what illegal content is. So that is actually just something that. So what the Digital Services Act did was just consolidate and simplify and modernize the act that's been in place since like 2000 anyway. So it's not really anything like crazy. And there's actually some laws that are much needed, such as like dark patterns and a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about. Like I actually am quite a big proponent of the Digital Services Act. But again, because these idiots don't know what the fuck they're talking about, when they're talking about illegal content, that is illegal content as determined by individual countries that are in the EU pursuant to their specific processes, right? So it defers to, like the country. So Germany's got hate speech laws, Ireland's got different laws. They've all got different laws, right, around speech. So they defer to the countries to administer that part of it, right? And it's based so you just got to make it very clear what they mean by illegal content. So the problem with like Russell Brand and Glenn Greenwald, and I've talked about these in my previous streams as well, which is that they lump in too many things together and turn it into this big fucking conspiracy, and it gets too big and they turn it into this thing that it actually isn't. Okay. Like it's just like, anyway, they're talking about misinformation, disinformation organizations from the UN. They're confusing the UN with the EU. They're confusing fucking the WEF with the EU and all this shit. And it's just like, okay, who the fuck are you? What are you talking about? Okay. And like, that's the same thing, like illegal content. They just assume that means like disinformation and misinformation. Now, combating misinformation, disinformation, and all that sort of stuff, right? A lot of that stuff is coming out of America, an American, anyway. It's all big one projection, right, with Americans, right? So, again, I've got concerns. Some of these things need to be defined, like dark patterns. What specific dark patterns are you talking about when you're talking about dark patterns? But what they've done is defer to test cases and the individual laws and case by case, and said, no, they've made it deliberately vague so it can actually sort of work its way through the courts, right? So, so I apologize if it's unbearable to listen to me speak. It's usually unbearable to listen to me speak at the best of times, but I'm a bit sick, but that's okay. So, anyway, when you're talking about illegal content, I want to be quite clear that they mean illegal content as per whatever countries determine illegal content is, right? Now, people with brainworms, they've just got too many fucking thoughts in their head, and they don't, it's up to each country to determine what that is, okay? Now, in relation to the risk assessment and mitigation measures adopted by X to counter the dissemination of illegal content in the EU, okay, as well as the functioning of the notice and action mechanism for illegal content in the EU mandated by the DSA, including in light of X's content moderation resources. So that means he sacked a bunch of his content moderation team. The transparency report has gaps in it, which it does. We have concerns about that sort of dissemination of illegal content, particularly around, because a lot of this was around the Hamas contents. So in the transparency report, out of their thousands of content moderators, X only has 20 people who can read Arabic. Okay. Sorry, was it? No, it's 20 in Spanish. Hang on, where was the transparency report? Hang on. Let's go here. Where is it? I'm going to confirm it. So this is why they're looking. This is what they're doing. Okay. See, the problem with the facts is that the facts tend to be boring, and I don't see how X is going to have a problem here, right? If they just got to align their stuff. Where are we? So the data's all here, right? Okay, so this is their own transparency report. So this isn't like anything coming from the EU. This is the report. So this is the report that X wrote in response to the EU, to their request for information. Okay. So they talk about their moderation process, what models they use. It's actually really quite interesting, and like what processes they use. If you've been watching my channel, you'll already know how it works because I've already explained it. From I'm pretty much correct on how it works. There's some details that are a bit like slightly better than I thought, but where are we? So let me just find the data. Hang on. Restricted reach actions. Where's the language? Hang on. Yeah. Linguistics expertise of our content moderation team. 12 people can read Arabic, okay? 2 can read Bulgarian, 1 Croatian, 1 Dutch, 2,294 English, 52 French, German, Hebrew, Italian, Latvian. So you see this here, Portuguese and Spanish. So it's quite interesting to see that because, you know, obviously most of the fuckery comes out of the United States anyway. So, so this is the kind of stuff that they want to investigate, right? They want to look at this stuff because that's concerning. That is concerning that they're in the EU, the whole of the EU, there is only one content person who can speak Dutch, right? Yeah. Well, you can't do, yes. Well, you know, and it's like, well, okay, I can understand how maybe their AI or their algorithm might be able to read that. Like, so they've probably, in fairness, they've probably got like the translation tools built into the first level of support in the AI and all that sort of stuff. But what the purpose of the actual investigation is to actually put more scrutiny on their actual processes. So when you read this transparency report, there's a lot of gaps, right? There's a lot of blanks. There's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of stuff. So if you read the sort of annotations and stuff here, right? You've asked us for this, but we don't have it. You've asked us for this, but we don't have it, right? Remember when I was reading those reports, the court filings, where the Twitter staff didn't know what fleets were, and they were like, I don't know where to get the data, and it's like, oh my God, it's basically, that's like, they're a mess. Absolute mess, right? Now, I think that predates Elon Musk in a lot of ways, right? But like, so they do have, so where are we? So let's find Arabic. Okay, so they don't actually mention Arabic anywhere else. Okay, find French. Yeah, so that, you know, like they've got these other things here. So like they've got these like visibility filtering indicators, but these numbers are quite low and confusing and vague. And I go, there's gaps here. Like if I was auditing this, right? Are you telling me that there is, like it doesn't add up, right? And even just on the surface, these numbers don't look correct. There's major gaps in their reporting, right? I imagine that will change. But this is what they're actually trying to get at, which is to audit them. So basically the whole process is we're asking you for information. Give us the transparency report. This is the standard that you need to meet, okay? They got this transparency report. There's not much data in it and a lot of excuses as to why they don't have the data, okay? And it's like, okay, well, we're going to do an investigation. We're going to like interview people. We're going to figure it out, right? There's no fines. There are risks of fines if they don't comply. So if they're not actually operating in good faith, right, then obviously they're going to get the fines. But looking at this myself, I'm like, yeah, this, you know, I'm not a lawyer yet, but I'm saying if I was their legal team and I was like going through this, I'd go, yeah, no, it's not enough. There's too many gaps here. I want to go and have a look, right? That's what it is. Okay. So I just want you to know that that's like, where are we? I'm just trying to find you the thing. Hang on, I'm just trying to find where the other tab was. I think it was this one, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So that's what that first part, right? So the effectiveness of measures taken to combat information manipulation on the platform. They're not dealing with that, right? They're not dealing with that at all, especially community notes, right? I have great hope for community notes. I think it's great, but I'm on my last strike with community notes. And it's obvious that like these Koch-funded disinformation places and stuff, they've stacked out community notes to downvote and like mark as not needed and all that stuff. So they've got this thing where they're posting the disinformation and they've got people downvoting anyone that corrects them and rated as not helpful and stuff. And you're finding yourself like anyone who's a good faith person that's easily gamed. Okay. I don't use community notes anymore because I'm on my last strike. There's no point. And again, it's very American dominated. So if you're doing like fairly benign content, yes. But if you are doing stuff that favors American, like far right type orgs, like the Koch brothers, and like for me, I got into stoush with the vaping lobby, that the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, who are Koch brothers funded like org in the US, who are basically just spreading disinformation deliberately against the vaping laws that we've got here, right? And I got into a stoush with them, and like they send their bots, and one of their like educational accounts said that Community Notes is a brilliant fact-checking platform and all that stuff, just trying to troll me, right? It was actually quite funny because obviously it's trying to engage. It's obviously some sort of bot that has, again, it's like, your husband's name is Paul. And it said, you said you're a fixer. Are you working for Becky and Terry? And I was like, who the fuck is Becky and Terry? It turns out Becky is an academic. She's an associate professor, not even a full one at University of Sydney? Yeah, something like that. And Terry is a public servant who did research into the vaping laws, right? Apparently I work for them and they're all powerful, okay? Becky and Terry, found out who they are. But they, they obviously like sent like bots to mass report me again. I've been prompted to confirm my identity again, and it starts all over again. Community Notes is easily gamed. It's obvious to anyone who knows what they're looking at that this stuff needs more scrutiny. You need someone who goes in and looks at it and goes, okay, this is being gamed. Like, it's presenting as fact. It's presenting that like he's allowing these orgs to like get blue checks. He's allowing these dodgy meme accounts and these things with the Roman statues to get their blue check marks. They're not a registered business. They're just like they're obviously data harvesting, right? And so it's like to Becky and Terry, it's very funny because it was I was like, who the fuck is Becky and Terry? Like, you work for Becky and Terry. It says you're a fixer, because it said I was a fixer on my LinkedIn profile in like 2014. Like, they've obviously got like outdated data in the CRM, right? It says you're a fixer. Who are you? Tell us who you're working for. It's pretty funny. But apparently Becky and Terry are very powerful. But then I messaged Paul because he was out, and I said, I found Becky and Terry. And I was like, yeah, associate professor and some fucking mid-level public servant, right? It's like, for fuck's sake, those dickheads. So anyway, my voice is going to give out, I think, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, so they want to look at the effectiveness of measures taken to combat information manipulation on the platform, notably the effectiveness of X's so-called community notes system in the EU, and the effectiveness of related policies mitigating risks to civic discourse and electoral processes. Again, like this is known. If you've got any objection to this, the people that are pushing this are the people who are funded by these far-right fucking organizations, these PACs, all these PACs that I've talked about, all the engagement pods, they're obviously pushing this narrative that, that Elon Musk is being targeted because of free speech, because he wants free speech. It's like, no, this is a fairly benign and normal investigation, and basically it's like, come to the table and there's nothing to worry about. Elon Musk has been on record as being broadly supportive of the Digital Services Act. What you'll find interesting if you read the transparency report is that they're still committed to coordinating with law enforcement. They're still working with law enforcement. They're still running the dashboards. They've still got, direct reporting and all that sort of stuff. They're doing that stuff in good faith. They're not betraying everyone. They're they're up trying to operate in good faith with a new framework, as is everyone else. Everyone is scrambling. Dark patterns have been made illegal. I can't go into it too much because, obviously my voice is not is on its way out. I've talked about a lot of dark patterns before. I might delay it for February when there's more, when it actually comes into effect. But it's funny because people are going to be running. You'd be surprised what is actually a dark pattern, right? Like pop-ups, like excessive pop-ups, certain all sorts of manipulative tactics that UX designers use that I've opposed for many, many years and been very vocal about.
are going to now attract massive fines. Thank fuck. Okay. I'm happy to do, I could do compliance audits, like from a design point of view for people, but we'll see how we go, right? I need the money, so I might just do some compliance audits to get some money in until things settle down. But anyway, speaking of money, become a patron. Where are we? Did I put a QR code there? No, it doesn't work. Hang on. I got a fancy QR code. I'm sorry, I feel like shit. Okay. So I'm fading. Sorry. But I'll put that on for a minute. Where are we? So the effectiveness. So the measures taken by X to increase the transparency of its platform. So the investigation concerns suspected shortcomings in giving researchers access to X's publicly accessible data, and they're working towards that too. So they just want to do an investigation for themselves. So basically they're like, well, your transparency report didn't have enough information in it. We want to go in and verify it for us. There's no criminalization. There's nothing. It is an investigation. It is just like, we need to just be satisfied that you're meeting these requirements or working towards them in good faith, right? That's it. And also the deceptive design thing. Okay, so this is really good. This is a suspected deceptive design of the user interface, notably in relation to check marks linked to certain subscription products, the so-called blue checks. Okay, so if proven, these failures would constitute infringements of Articles 34.1, 34.2, 35.1, 16.5, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the opening of informal infringement proceedings does not prejudge its outcome. Okay. They're the first formal proceedings. It's a good test case. I imagine X will come to the table. But of course, dipshits being dipshits, they just, will just say it's because he's letting he's doing the free speech. They, thems are coming after Musk. It's like, there's nobody. No, this is so boring. Okay. So the next steps after the formal opening of proceedings, the Commission will continue to gather evidence. So they're just basically saying, give us what we asked for, cunt. That's it. By sending additional requests for information, conducting interviews or inspections, right? So so they just want to check that because they could fudge the numbers. There's all sorts of, things that don't ring true here, especially around the non-English content moderation. Right? I sat there and I was like, what the fuck? Especially in light of, Israel and Gaza and all, and Israel and Hamas and all that sort of stuff at the moment. Like, what the fuck? Where are we? So anyway, but the most interesting part is the dark patterns part, right? Because dark patterns are like unlawful now. Okay, so what's a dark pattern? So a dark pattern is a design feature. So you would most definitely have come across a dark pattern, right? I'll only do it quickly. I'll go into this in more detail another time. But a dark pattern is a design feature, something where, like, let's say let's use Ticketmaster as an example, where you are sort of, you buy concert tickets, you think that's the price of the concert tickets. You go through the checkout, and then there's a surprise booking fee charge that you can't get out of, right? That's a forced payment charge. That would be a dark pattern, right? Because you're sort of coerced or forced to pay an additional fee, right? Excessive pop-ups, okay, that don't do anything that deceives the user. So something where you've signed up for App Store, the Apple Store, right? The Apple App Store, where you would sign up for something like a 3-day trial, and then it was like, you want to get this, they advertise it as a free app, and then it's a 3-day trial, and then it's like $90 a month or $90 every 7 days. Those sort of, like, there was a point where those dodgy, people sort of got around that with those dodgy apps and sort of trick people into a subscription. That would be it's an unethical design thing that's designed to deceive and get users to do something that they wouldn't ordinarily do if they were, like, in their right mind. So, even something like, you may have noticed actually that, like, Netflix or Prime or YouTube, they're actually turning off things like autoplay. I noticed that Audible at the moment now actually just goes to the end of the chapter and requires you to hit play, right? Again, now I'm not sure if there might be an application bug. Sometimes bugs occur, but you'll see that Netflix now makes you consciously choose to go to the next episode.
they make you constant, you have to actually, opt into the what's next thing, right? That's to address this, that would be non-skippable ad. Like, for example, with YouTube, that would be considered a dark pattern because you are forced to sort of consume content. That's a different thing. That is slightly different. But, then you've got, what's the cancel, what's it called? Fucking, hang on, I've got it written down here. Hang on, let me get my notes out. My brain's not functioning. Like confirm shaming, that's what it's called. So like guilt tripping people for like not opting into something. So like you may have been like, Kogan like have dark patterns. If you go to Kogan.com, they're like dark pattern central, right? Amazon has a lot of them too. Not so many, but quite, like a few. But Kogan, like where they'll just sort of deceive. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. There's a lot of different examples. So not displaying price, anything that sort of deceives you, right? So not displaying pricing up front, anything that emotionally manipulates you to doing something that, that sort of those unethical nudges that I've talked about like 100,000 times, right? That get you to do, sort of persuade you. So there's a difference between persuading and manipulating, and there's a grey area there. It depends on how. Like a lot of the difference between like persuasion and manipulation is intent, much like with criminal law, like the Digital Services Act. If there's any kind of criminal penalty, a lot of it will be around intent. Like that's a principle of like law, that it's an intention, it's an intent to deceive. Okay, persuasive design is different. Okay, it just needs more scrutiny. So something like repeated pop-ups that sort of fuck up everything, and so you can't read everything. Brand influencers not declaring something as an ad, so that would be considered a dark design. That would be considered a dark pattern. You've got like a email opt-in, but it says I want a discount, and it says and you've got the choice to either enter your email address, but it's like confirm shaming. So if you say no, it's like I don't like saving money. Like there's certain specific like copy that like is designed to emotionally manipulate you into doing something, like giving your email address over. Obviously you've got these quizzes and the data farming and all that sort of stuff. Okay. And I think that the reason why X is an interesting target, especially around the blue checks, is because I've observed this. I mean, well, everyone has, but these engagement accounts, they're not verified, they're anonymous. They're obviously far right, like they've gotten very clever. They're very dangerous and concerning pattern that I've seen, and I think that it'll come out that these accounts need. They need some action attached. And I think Musk doesn't give a fuck. And I think that it looks like the Daily Wire or someone like that have figured out this new, like, where they're pushing these trad wife, like, like the nuclear family, women should have children and breed, and like this, like sort of far right, like women get back in the kitchen shit. But they hide behind like a meme account where it's like, they've got the Greco-Roman statue or the AI generated like some sort of like aesthetic sort of account, and they're sort of running memes, but they're actually asking questions. Like one that I saw yesterday, and I was like, don't answer these things. It was a blue check account, and it was something like it was just a generic like blue check, some sort of thing that was like dedicated to fashion. It's a version of the same thing that IRA sort of technique with Facebook pages. If you like, you're setting up the Facebook page around cars, and then they'd suddenly pivot, right? And I think that that's what we're going to see in the next election. I haven't got any examples, and this is just a fucking. I might do a more cohesive stream where or even a pre-record where I show you specifically what to look for with these accounts. And some of it is like just like instinct, and some of it is just, learning to spot certain patterns. But so they're like a blue check account with like, they're dedicated to like one thing, like some sort of, let's just say like they're a Tesla fan account, but they also talk about like, 1950s aesthetic, for example. And then what they'll do is they will say, they'll ask a question. So they're just asking
obvious questions. Okay, it's the same old quiz model. It's the same old shit from like, you know, that if you've been paying attention to my stuff over the years, you're familiar with, which is, you know, the quizzes and the, you know, trying to get you off platform onto lists and build a CRM in behind the scenes so that they can target you with, you know, direct like email and you know, like use like, you know, audiences and stuff like that to target you with ads and various other sinister things, right? And we've got an election coming up, so they're more interested in that, right? But it posted a question. The one I saw yesterday was like, who's the most famous person you went to high school with? Now that should actually go, okay, so why are they asking that? That could be a legitimate meme. It could just be a legitimate engagement thing. Okay, that's a fun conversation. What could be wrong with that? Well, okay, guess what? By answering that, guess what? That's a public figure where they can say who went to what high school. They can start building that data in the background. Okay, you see what I'm saying? And another tactic that and so they'll just ask these questions. I think that we're at a point where you shouldn't be answering anything, answering personal questions like that can be reverse engineered. Anything that like that, that, you know, will give a behavioral profile or a childhood memory or your mother's maiden name or anything like that. You should sort of try to not do that or give fake information. Like I don't answer those things, and I make jokes, and I don't like and it's funny because you'll find that, like I said, like you'll have it come back to you, like that happened the other day with the vaping like bot accounts where they started spitting back something that wasn't normal, right? Which is that's why I deliberately have a weird job title on LinkedIn and stuff, because I know where they got the data from. Okay. And so when they spit it back at you, it's false. And you go, oh, okay, you're a bit dodgy, right? You see how it works? But I've also seen this thing on LinkedIn where they'll advertise jobs. And as part of their pre-screening process, they'll ask all of these things like your childhood pet, your mother's fucking this. We're going to do a background check. And so don't give that stuff, because that stuff can be used to like, socially, if you work for anyone like who might be a target, that can be used to like socially engineer you, call you, get sort of information, identity theft. It's getting worse and worse. And this is the problem that we've kind of, that is a very real threat and a very real problem. And it interferes with, you know, the organic part of having fun and sharing memes and all that sort of stuff. And I would just like to say that maybe you should hesitate in terms of what you share. Like, I don't share actual personal information. Like I'm out there with my real name, but most of it is sort of, you know, I creatively fluff details about my life other than, you know, obviously the things that are just, you know, easily verifiable. You know, I think that it's very important to do that. And also give fake names and that sort of stuff, because if they start sharing those fake names back at you, you'll know that like that's an inauthentic account, right? And you know that it came from places, right? So you've got to be a bit more savvy when it comes to these, like, especially with AI, like being able to run these things with AI now. And Elon Musk seemingly not having any real desire to turn this off because it's a source of revenue. I imagine that what they've done is they're buying gold check marks, and they're spending a lot of money on ads. So he lets them run these accounts thinking that they're just going to increase engagement, but really they're also just because the way that the API works, especially with Facebook, is that you can't just harvest from the API directly. What you can do is if you are a developer, you can access all of the comments and all of the interactions that are related to your specific piece of content, okay? So you don't want to be interacting with that content, okay? You might want to, if you're going to do stuff, quote, tweet it, and don't, you know, or whatever, or screenshot or whatever, don't reply to things like that. If you're just going to have fun and you got a good joke or whatever, you know, don't give away be very careful about giving away personal information or stuff that could easily be, you know, extrapolated to being personal information. I think that who's the most famous person you went to school with is a really good example of an innocent, like fairly memey question that can easily go, well, they went to that high school. You see how they can go, well, we've got a list of people who went to the same high school, and now we can say, oh, and you're giving away very important personal information where people can say, like, this has happened, where there was a time when debt collectors like would call people and call their Facebook friends and start muscling them, right? And they would start and they do these tactics, right? And that became illegal because of course it did. But what they do is they'd call and say, hey, you know this person, and you know your friends, because they'd be looking at your Facebook friends and your Facebook list and go, you went to high school together or whatever, and they go, oh, have you heard from her? That's a tactic that like scammers use as well, right? And so you've got to be very careful where, you know, you're going to start getting phone calls, especially with AI. Remember, people are building these data banks behind the scenes where if they can fake the voice of a loved one, okay? And I don't want to scare you. I'm just saying, like, you just need to be aware that this can happen, right? And unfortunately, it gets in the way of authentic like interactions. That's the unfortunate side effect of this, is that you have to not trust people as readily online as you ordinarily would, right? And that's just unfortunate, because that's why we can't have nice things, because scammers ruin it, right? You know, it's like with relationships. It's like when, you know, if you get hurt enough times, you have trouble trusting. But in order to have a good relationship, you need to be able to trust, and that becomes a spiral. It's the same thing with people like making friends online and stuff, where, you know, you've always got to be conscious that someone isn't who they say they are, or that they're like manipulating. And with AI and stuff, it's only going to get like more difficult to determine that, right? And I don't like that reality, because, you know, I've always been, you know, like I've had several like AI obvious like social, you know, obviously I'm a target for those things, then like I can spot them really easily, and most people can't, and it's very easy to get caught. But, you know, so like just through that question of like who's the fake, they know who you went to high school with, but they also know who else went to that high school, whoever else are, so they can say, oh, you're friends with, because so they can look at who you're following. You went to the same high school. They can do a scam call and say, hey, it's me. We met at a party. Remember we were at blah, 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 blah with that person? And they sort of get through all of your defenses, right? And you see how like that can be used for sort of social engineering purposes, right? And so I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail, but this is why I think these legal frameworks have to be in place, because it's becoming quite dire, because the penalties need to be, I've said this, that, you know, the penalties need to be severe enough to be a deterrent to facilitate this type of stuff on a major online platform. Like the stakes are really high on a platform like Twitter or X, right? Because they can spread quickly and widely. And also, I'm deeply concerned by some of the numbers there, where it can take up to 7 days for them to rectify the most violent content, like a complaint. Like they're so like slow and inefficient. Like I had an account that was impersonating me, like, and it took them a week. I had to give my ID. I'm already ID verified. I had to give them my ID a second time in order to complain. Okay, and I had to, like, the forms. It wasn't clear how to do it. I had to give them my ID. Took them a week. Then they asked me for my ID again. And then they finally took it down, because I basically said, what the fuck? What am I paying for? And, you know, like I made a noise, and I don't know whether tagging them like on the platform helps, but like, it's like, what the fuck? That needs, I want to see, yes, that's something that should be like, they should be dedicating more resources to. And especially the fact that he's, you know, fired so many of his staff. You know, I think that it's like compliance. Like, I don't know why people are opposed to the Digital Services Act unless they're up to some dodgy shit, if I'm honest with you. Because it's not related to censorship, okay? It's not a censorship bill. There are some things that are not defined yet, okay? But, you know, don't assume the word. It's like some of it is like, because it's country per country, and each country has its own laws, and, you know, they're respecting the constitutions of like each individual country within the EU, right? So they defer to that like process. It's some of it needs to be like ironed out, like what dark patterns are because some of, again, dark patterns is something, you've got you've got gray, and dark is like not all black hat. Dark is a range of things, and it depends on the, like I said, intention, depends on how often, like with a strict interpretation of the of dark patterns being, and DSA, like these takeovers with a pop-up offer, saying, like that technically is a dark pattern, and everyone's doing it, and like it's like, well, okay, well, we need to go further down and define the details of like what actually constitutes an illegal dark pattern versus a legal one, and in what circumstances, and that's something that can only be determined like with case law. It's a case law thing. Right? It is only going to be something that will be determined with case law, and it will be mostly the individual countries that implement and do the actual policing and law enforcement and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, again, I think it's just a big misrepresentation of what's actually going on, right? But again, so another example of like dark pattern would be like friend spam. So if you're a Farmville person, making it so you had to share to your Facebook friends, that would be a dark pattern, right? There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They're so common. It is funny because it is hilarious, because I've been warning for ages that this is a gap and that gap would be closed, and agencies should be doing ethical design to be like in line and not be fucked. And now they're fucked, and it's hilarious. I'm happy to do a consult. And like I said on LinkedIn, if I've said this to you before, it's 5 times the rate because you didn't listen. Because it's just like, so anything that deceives the user and sort of tricks them into doing, pop-ups, all that like annoying, all the shit that manipulates the users. So I'll go into it in more detail when I'm feeling well. Become a patron if you want, but that button's not working, is it? Oh, yeah, it works there. Okay. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, I need to fix that. I'm really not great, but let me check and see if there's any chats and the shitty X app. Hang on, and LinkedIn, because LinkedIn chats don't come through. They don't. Okay. No, that's all right. I think I'm good. I think this is an hour's enough for me. I think I'm fading. I think it's time for me to go. But I am going to do a Festivus, assuming that, because I've heard that COVID, you can sort of go on a decline. Like you'll start to think that this is the worst of it and get worse. So I'm sort of I don't think I've got it too bad. This is the first time. I actually haven't had COVID before. This is the first time I've had it. My fucking kid, like he had the sniffles and he wasn't feeling so good. But he's, like grumpy teenagers. Teenagers are grumpy. I didn't realize that he was actually unwell. He was just a bit like, and it didn't occur to me because it didn't even occur to me to ask. And then we went out. I went out the other night, and I don't go out much. The one night that I went out and I was fucking hugging people and talking and saying whatever, and in a public bar, in a pub in the middle of the city, my son goes, "Oh yeah, I've got COVID." My friend texted me. Oh, good. And then I suddenly started feeling unwell the other night. And then we were home late. I woke up the next day feeling a bit unwell, and my youngest said, I got a text last night while you were out. I had COVID, actually. My friend said he had COVID. And I was like, well, that's good. I better let everyone else know then. But this is actually the first time I've had it. So, but I seem to be, but yeah, thank fuck. Paul was supposed to start methotrexate. Thank fuck he hadn't started it yet. I'm already worried enough with the drugs he's on, but he seems to be okay. But again, there's that window in the next few days because I've had a lung collapse before and various other things. I've got health problems, and also COVID's been associated with pancreatitis, and I already have chronic pancreatitis, and I have been getting quite a bit of pain. So I've just got to wait and see. I might have another flare up of my pancreatitis as well as a result. So, it's always like a bit of a fun thing, but so far, so I'm fine, right? But yeah, so, because we're both sort of, a little bit, I'm not immunocompromised. I just have illnesses that have been linked. Some people have gotten pancreatitis from COVID without having had pancreatitis before. I have chronic pancreatitis, and so there's a very good chance I could have an attack if we don't know, right? Well, because we didn't do the boosters. I only had the 2. I didn't do the boosters. Because it was WA, and like it was like, whatever, fucking whatever. So yeah, we didn't. I just did the 2, but we're okay, we're fine. I don't go out enough, and I just never got around to doing the boosters, and like But if it's not because I'm opposed, I'm just ADD, and I kept forgetting. So I was like, okay. And then by the time the borders open and everything, Omicron and all of that sort of stuff, I was like, oh well, probably just be like a cold or whatever. So, it got to a point where I was just like, just get it over with. I'm glad it's just get it over with. It's like, I know there's people who've had it 4 or 5 times. It's not a big deal. So I'm more annoyed that I can't milk it and get sympathy. Like it's like, can't I just get things where I want to go so I can justify setting up a GoFundMe? You just want like just a little bit of cancer, just not the kind that kills you, just a little bit. Like being cancelled, like you want to be a little bit cancelled, not completely cancelled. You want to be just cancelled enough so you can monetize. It's the same thing with illness. You want just enough illness to be able to like milk it, Yeah, so he seems to be okay so far. I've got to check in, but the next couple of days are, where you kind of know what your track's going to be in the next 24, 48 hours, and then, but yeah, I won't get complacent because obviously any time up to sort of 7 to 10 days, you can go on the decline pretty fast. So I'm making sure I do deep breaths and hoping for the best. It's all you can do, really. You don't know what you don't know. I had Tetris toast. You don't know what your trajectory is going to be until you get there. Like there are certain things where I'm at risk, having had previous lung collapses and pancreas and having chronic pancreatitis and some vitamin deficiencies and other things. Paul obviously being immunocompromised as well. So you just don't know. But I tend to also not get colds and flu. So even though I have a lot of health problems that tend to try and kill me dead every few years, they're not colds and flu. I tend to be robust in that department. I don't tend to the whole house could be wiped out with like colds and flu and I don't get them. So I'm hoping that this one applies as well. I'm hoping that, we haven't gotten it up until now. We were in OVIDs up until 2 days ago. So 4 days ago. Thanks, Angus. 4 days ago, when I was asymptomatic and fucking hugging and saying hi to everyone and going to the bar and, for fuck's sake. That's what you get for going out, by the way. But, anyway, I want to get just sick enough so I can have a GoFundMe. Just enough. Or you could become a patron. Or whatever. No, cute. It's all good. It's that time of year. Like, it's over. Everyone's gone. No one's replying to emails. There's a freeze until when people come back, because in Australia we've got Australia Day on the 26th, so people often do their long holidays between Christmas and the 26th of January, and so it's dead. People aren't officially back to work until after the Australia Day, right? Most people take their go on holidays or whatever, and so I don't know if it's the case in America, but it gets dead here for a month. Everyone just fucks off and goes to the beach. But that obviously affects your cash flow. So, but again, we just lay low and do what you do. You can't change it. So you just, do what you can do. But it's a good chance for me to have some downtime and hopefully finish the website. I was supposed to finish it this week, but, obviously gotten sick. So, but yeah, I'm going to work on that quietly over the next few days. So, but yes, I am hoping to do a Festivus stream. Health willing, I do one every year, and I will just rant. And we've got the metal pole, and we'll do the thing. I've got a list of 10 things. Bring your grievances, and I'll do that on the 23rd, my time, which is the 22nd America time, and I might do it a little later
Yeah, we'll see how we go. Yeah, anyway. Let me know what time works for you, and we'll do it and have some fun. But I think I'm going to go. I will do some more on the Digital Services Act and the dark patterns and explain what those are. I was going to do it today, but this isn't happening. I'm about to start sneezing and spluttering. It's only because I've got a red removal filter that you can't see how red I am. Like I'm fucking about to start sneezing. But I will be back on whatever day, on the 23rd, 2 days from now. Saturday, whatever fucking day that is, Saturday. Saturday my time, Friday yours. All right, I love you. Thank you for your precious 5 seconds. Christmas is optional, and if I don't see you between now and then or whatever, do have a great Christmas if you do celebrate it, and happy Hanukkah if you celebrate that. All of those things. I should be back. I'm hard because I've always had like illness. I'm pretty robust. I got grit in that regard. I'm pretty hard to put down. When I go down, I nearly die. Right, I have to be nearly dead to be down. Right, so but there's also with that, there's always a chance. I'm one of those walking pneumonia type of people, or like stage 4 cancer without knowing it people. I'm one of those people where I was like, I'm sicker than I realized because I'm like tough, and I got a very high pain threshold because I live with pain. I got a high pain threshold, so I got to be mindful, and so I'm sitting there paying attention to my breathing and all of those things. But yeah, I think I'm okay. Like I generally know when I'm sick. I'm quiet when I'm sick. I wouldn't be doing this if I was like actually seriously ill. So I just feel like shit. But we'll see how we go. I love you too, Matt. Love you, Isaac, and Tetris Toast. And hi, Judith. And hi, Stephen, who said he's watching the replay. Hi, Stephen. Have fun, and I'll see you in 2 days. Everything permitting, okay? Assuming none of us are on ventilators. Because I've also got a kid as well, who, he might have vitamin D deficiencies and stuff, and you just don't know. You don't know the trajectory until you've had it, and we haven't had it to go through the house, except for my youngest, who's had it. I think he's had it 3 fucking times, and we never got it. So, but anyway, thank you. I love you. All of that stuff. Fuck Elon Musk. Also, all of the things. I don't know. I'm talking shit. Anyway, become a patron if you can. If you can't, I understand. It's all good. I'll be back in full steam. Like, I'm actually trying to get, so the next week, other than the Festivus thing, which I've been preparing for. Oh, here we go. That's starting now. Is that I'm starting to make it so that there is a weekly post for everything. There's a weekly essay, and I'm writing a lot and getting things done and getting everything finished. But, obviously the website is the blocker for that. And I've gone and decided to bite off more than I can chew because I'm a fucking legend and a perfectionist, and I'm not happy with a standardized experience. But I'll push through and I'll get there. So, but I will see you soon. I got to piss. That's my sign off now, isn't it? Isn't that my sign off? I got to piss. No. Thank you for your precious lives. I got to piss. Take care. Bye. I actually do got to piss. Every time. Just dying here. Don't worry. I'll just go and die then. I'm gonna die. Don't mind me. I'm just gonna go and die. Bye. Are you gonna fucking stop streaming or what? Nah? Okay.